This video is going to look at the other main market force that we need to address, which is supply. So we've already taken a little bit of a look at demand. When we're thinking about the supply curve, the most important thing to bear in mind is that we're talking about producers, i.e. businesses or firms. So when you're thinking about supply, you need to try and think about it from the point of view of a business manager. So don't think about it as a customer, as we did with demand. Think about it from the point of view of a business manager. And we know that supply, from our definition, is the amount that these producers, these businesses, are willing and able to offer for sale at a given price. So I'm going to stick with my coffee example that we were looking at when we were considering demand. And we're going to assume that I have 5 coffee shops. Okay, so we've got 5 coffee shops. So we've got coffee shop A, B, C, D, and E. And each of those, for various reasons, has a different cost per cup of coffee which they sell. So let's say that for each cup of coffee that coffee shop A wants to sell, they need to incur a cost of 50p, and that covers the cost of the coffee itself, the labour, the cup, all of those sorts of things. Coffee shop B has a cost per cup of coffee of £1, C £1.50, D £2, and E £2.50. Now I've obviously kind of constructed this for the purposes of comparison, but it will give us a bit of an idea. So the important thing to remember is that this is the cost per cup, something that we call the unit cost or the average cost. We will look at those terms a little bit later on in the economics course. But basically we've got 5 coffee shops here, and each of them has a different cost when it comes to producing a cup of coffee. So let's transfer this onto a diagram then and see what it looks like. So let's think about what this is going to mean then when we put this onto a diagram. I've transferred my business's unit costs over. So you can see there we've got our 5 companies and the costs to each of them of producing a cup of coffee. So let's think about some different prices and how these firms will respond. So let's say that these businesses were only able to get, let's say, 10p for selling their cup of coffee. Now, let's think about it from a business owner's point of view. If you can get 10p by selling a cup of coffee and you run one of these 5 businesses, what are you going to do? Well, it should be fairly obvious that actually you're not going to sell anything. You're not going to produce any cups of coffee, because even the most efficient firm A, still has costs for every cup of coffee they produce of 50p. So if they're only going to get 10p for each cup of coffee they sell, they're going to make very substantial losses. So if the price is 10p, then we will have 0 quantity. So we will be at 0 along this horizontal quantity axis down here. Let's increase the price slightly and see what actually happens. So let's say we're going to increase the price now up to 60p. So let's kind of keep a record of what we're doing up here so we can see. So when it was 10p, none of these businesses were in the market. We've now increased up to 60p. What will happen? Well, again, it should be quite clear that these businesses won't produce because they will make a loss by doing so. Firm A, though, Firm A can sell at 60p because if they sell at 60p, that's greater than their cost. So there's an incentive there from profits for them to produce at that level of price. So let's say that they're going to produce in kind of 10 unit chunks. If the price is 60p, then Firm A will enter the market, sell 10 cups of coffee. Let's increase the price again. Let's go to £1 and 10p. So at £1.10, add another column on here. What will happen? Firm A will obviously continue to produce. Firm B will now also enter the market, but C, D, and E will not. So at this point then, we will increase our output to 20 because Firm B will come in. So A will still produce its 10 cups of coffee. B will now produce 10 more cups of coffee. So the overall market quantity is now 20 cups of coffee. And hopefully you can see where this is going. We'll just do one more at a much higher price, and we'll kind of think about what this actually means. So let's jump all the way up to £2.20 up here. So at £2.20 then, what does this mean? Well, at £2.20, firm A will produce, B will produce, C will produce, D will produce, only E will not produce, because only E cannot be profitable at that very high price level. So we will then have total output of 40, and that will give us a point up here. Now what you can see is that as we are doing that, as we're drawing that, these points are lining up along quite a clear line. So if we join those points up, it's not very good, let's have another go at that. There we go, that's much better. This then is our supply curve. This is constructing the supply curve. And what we've talked about here are basically how different firms enter the market. And so what we're talking about here is a profit incentive. And this is one of the key forces that drives, well, I suppose the main force that drives the nature of the supply curve. And it means that as the prices rise, as we saw on the chart here from 10 to 60 to £1.10 to £2.20, that means that businesses can become more profitable. And that means that the overall market output will increase. So as the prices rise, that creates an incentive for firms, both those within the market, to produce more, to make more profit, but also, as we've just seen, by allowing new firms into the market, potentially those that were less efficient into the market, also adds to the amount of output that is being generated of this particular product. So, really important thing to remember for when we're talking about the supply curve is that the reason it slopes upwards is because of the profit incentive. Higher prices mean greater potential profits, and therefore firms will be more willing and able to produce higher levels of output.